Hi everyone, this is Neil. Apologies in advance if you hear any background noise. I'm here with my entire family at the weekend, and it's birthday. It's both my partner and my father's birthday, so everyone's a little bit giddy and excitable. So you might hear noise in the background. I apologise in advance. Anyway, here goes. We are looking this week at the second week on interpersonal skills and facilitation. Last week we looked at John Heron's model of the six dimensions of facilitation. And today we're going to have a little look at his other well-known model, which is to do with the six categories of intervention, or six CAT. Now, just to remind us, and this came from last week, the textbook that we're using here is John Heron's book, The Complete Facilitator's Handbook, which is an absolutely fabulous book, actually. It's really worth a flick through. You don't need to read it cover to cover because it's really comprehensive, but if you have a flick through it, I'm sure you'll find parts of it which really resonate with you, and which I like because they just add elements to our armory as teachers. Yeah, and the PDF of this is up on the blog. And in this book, John defines being a facilitator in the following way. He says, "What I mean by a facilitator is a person who has the role of empowering participants to learn in an experiential group." And I find this really, really helpful. It also links to the notion that facilitator comes from the word facilis, easy. So it means to make something easier, to assist people in their progress. So in most of the groups I teach, I would describe them in different ways as experiential groups. I would describe the PG Cert as experiential learning. We're learning by trying to create meaning when we're together, either in person or on the blog, and then you're all applying that meaning and reflecting on it in relationship to your own experiences in the classroom when you teach yourselves. What I'm trying to do is to empower you to learn through that process. Now, as I said in the previous video, we looked at the six dimensions of facilitation. What we're going to look at today are the six different kinds of interventions we can choose to make in a group or with individuals. And I find this a really, really helpful model because occasionally if I'm a little bit stuck, it's almost like I have this Rolodex of options that I can flick through in my mind and think, oh, right, which kind of intervention is most likely to be most helpful in this situation? So let me show you the overall model first, and then I'll quickly describe what each of the interventions means and looks like, and then we'll do a little bit of reflection at the end. So in John's model, there are two different circuits, as it were, of three interventions per circuit, which adds up to six overall, and CAT just stands for category of intervention. So first of all, there are the three facilitative interventions, and those are supportive, catalytic, and cathartic. Then interwoven around all of those three are the three authoritative interventions, which are confronting, informative, and prescriptive. Okay, so we've got the facilitative interventions, supportive, catalytic, cathartic, and we've got the authoritative interventions, confronting, informative, prescriptive. So let me take you around the facilitative cycle first. And the reason we put supportive at the bottom is because it really is the foundational one, actually. It's the one that underpins all the rest. It's the one where we're making it really clear. It's like Stephen Brookfield, authority and ally. This is us really being in our ally. We're making it really clear to all of our participants that our primary aim is to help them grow and develop. That is the main reason we're working with them. So this underpins all of the rest, because if somebody fundamentally trusts that even if you're really challenging of them, your main aim in doing that is because you really want to support them in their growth and development, then they're much more likely to accept the challenge from you, as opposed to if they think that you're out to get them or trick them, or you don't like them, or you're trying to control them in some kind of a way, in which case, the challenge is likely not to work very well. So this is about affirming the absolute worth and value of every participant on the course. It's about not being in Biggs and Tang level 1 teaching, which is all about blame the student. It's about being in level 3 teaching, which is all about, okay, learning is all about what the student does, so therefore I've got to try and help all of my students do things that are the most productive things for them. It's about our own warmth and genuineness. We're not trying to hide things from people or trick them. And our empathy as well. And by empathy, I don't mean sympathy. By empathy, I mean really being able to get alongside our students and see what the course and what their learning looks like from their perspective. And it's very different, likely to be very different, at least in my experience, than my own perspective. And sometimes it's quite surprising when I suddenly realise, oh, my students are seeing it in that way. And it hadn't occurred to me that anyone would see it in that way. But that's how they're looking at things. So this really stems from a lot of listening as well, very close listening, to try and figure out the ways in which students are understanding what's going on. So this supportive intervention, this is the one which is the bedrock really out of which all the others grow. Catalytic is often to do with us asking questions as teachers. Catalytic is about helping the participants with their own self-directed learning and problem solving and their own self-discovery. Um, if a catalyst in a chemical reaction is a chemical that you put into the reaction to speed the reaction up. It doesn't become part of the reaction. It doesn't itself change, actually. Those of us who are old enough to remember O-level chemistry are now going, oh, vanadium pentoxide in the Haber-Frasch process. The rest of you probably aren't. So you're not old enough to know O-level chemistry, that's the problem. However, it's all about helping people with their own self-discovery in order to speed it up. And it's often to do with scaffolding people's learning, guiding their learning, asking them questions, but not taking the learning over from them, not just giving them answers, because that shortcuts their own learning process. You'll see, of course, a lot of this relates to various things that we've been discussing on the course already. The third facilitative intervention is the cathartic, and that's when we're working with someone and we can see that right now, actually, there's some kind of emotional block to their learning or progress or success. It's the student who thinks that this is just not relevant to them, or is struggling to find motivation, or is lacking in confidence, or is using any of the self-handicapping strategies that we've read about in Hattie. They just genuinely don't think they're ever going to be able to do it because, I haven't got that kind of a brain, or whatever it is that our students say in different ways. This is the Carol Dweck stuff about the difference between a growth mindset, where you'll give things a go and you don't mind making mistakes and you'll learn from that, and a fixed ability mindset, where you think, well, I can either do it or I can't, and it's as simple as that. So this is where we see participants with some kind of block to their learning, which we often need to gently be able to help them see that there's a block, get them to the point where they believe they can actually do something with it, and then help them release it. I find at BIM it's very often about confidence. I've had more than one PG Cert participant say to me, oh, the most helpful thing you did for me over the year or 2 years, depending which course they were on, was you were confident for me before I was able to be confident for myself. Well, that's a cathartic intervention. I'm trying to hold confidence for people so that they can then see and acknowledge that they're not feeling confident themselves, and then we can start directly working on that, rather than that being some sort of underground fear or energy which is just blocking progress. Okay, so there are your three facilitative interventions: supportive, catalytic, and cathartic. Now, the three authoritative interventions, the first one is confronting. And I find this interesting because sometimes people shy away from the word confronting because it sounds like confrontation and aggression and argument. And it's not that, actually. This is still being very supportive, although very often this intervention is unsolicited. And the reason it's unsolicited is what you're doing is you're holding up a mirror and showing the participants something in their blind spot which they're unaware of, which is getting in their way. So nobody asks you to say, oh, show me something in my blind spot. So that's why this is unsolicited. It could be a positive thing or a negative thing. And it's often some kind of limiting attitude or behaviour. So a confronting intervention might be, do you know what? I don't think you realise how good you are at this. Or a confronting intervention might be, do you know what? Actually, you've been 20 minutes late every week this term, and it really interferes with the group when you walk in and interrupt what we're doing. So it could be a positive thing or it could be a negative thing. But it's often someone has what we would call a limiting belief. That they discount themselves in some kind of way or simply believe they can't do it. And all you're doing is you're just showing them this belief because they're not aware of it and it's getting in their way. The last two are things that we do very, very often as teachers, but with a slight spin. So informative is where you realise that the reason somebody's stuck, because of course, remember, all of these interventions are about helping people make progress. The reason somebody's stuck is that there's just something they don't know, and once they've got that bit of information, they'll be able to get themselves unstuck. Obviously, teachers are always imparting information, but the spin here is that what we're trying to do is tune into and just impart the information that is strictly relevant to the participants' needs. In other words, we're asking ourselves, what is it that you need to know right now that's going to help you make progress? Not, right, what's everything that I know and now I'm going to dump all of it on you all in one go. This is in a way almost the opposite from the rather overstuffed and over-information heavy BIM curriculum that we've talked about when we've been in the room together. It's about really thinking about what somebody needs. I always think of the example as being, if you give somebody directions in the road, some people, if you stop and say, oh, how do I get to the church? they'll give you very simple directions and it's all that you need to know. Other people start telling you so many things that you just get completely lost and confused, and you're thinking, oh, was I meant to have gone past 4 lampposts at this point, or 5? And did you say it was a Tesco's and a Sainsbury's, or was it a post office, or was it a post box? Too much information. All they need to say is straight down the road, second on the left. Finally, prescription is, or a prescriptive intervention, is where if somebody's really stuck, you might want to suggest a direction for their behaviour, but again, without encroaching on their autonomy. So it's something like, well, if I were you, I would think about going and talking to so and so. You're not saying go and talk to so and so. You're offering a suggestion that you think would be really helpful, but then they can decide for themselves, first of all, whether they're going to do it at all, and secondly, why they think that might be useful for them. So there's the three authoritative interventions: confronting, informative, and prescriptive. Now, a few little key ideas here while you think about this model and decide whether there's things here you want to use. You can use some of it, you can use all of it. You can think about, what are my strengths and weaknesses in these areas already, and what could I improve on? Anything you take from this is all good. So as I say, I find the model useful because it reminds me I have options. I do think it's important that we think about how we both give and receive all of these interventions. In my experience, if there's one of the interventions or a couple of them that we don't necessarily take very well, then the chances are we won't necessarily give it very well. So, for example, something I've had to work on over the past years is that I've not, well, when I was younger, I wasn't very good at a confronting intervention. Things that I perceived as criticism, quote unquote, were things that I tended to resist. Of course, the intervention might not have been given to me in a particularly skillful way, but nonetheless. And so I found that when it came to giving somebody a confronting intervention about something negative, I would either pussyfoot all around and say things so gently that nobody really knew what I was trying to say in the first place, or I'd get so wound up before I said it that I'd end up going in too hard and, hitting someone over the head with a sledgehammer. And that was because I wasn't great at receiving that intervention. So have a think about the 6 and think, are there any of those that I feel a bit uncomfortable receiving? And how might that impact on how I'm able to give them to other people? It's really important to remember that none of these interventions is in any way better or worse than the others. The question is, have I picked the right one that's most appropriate in context? And of course, the way you would judge the answer to that is, have I picked the one that's most going to help this person make progress? If whatever you've done has helped unblock someone or help someone move forward or help somebody make progress, then yes, you've picked the right intervention. But it's also finally important to remember that it does matter how we deliver each intervention. So it's not just picking the right intervention, it's picking the right intervention and delivering it with positive intention and skill. John Heron talks about the idea that there are valid, degenerate, and perverse forms of each intervention. So valid is a good use, degenerate is when it's a bit unhelpful, and perverse is it's downright dodgy or inappropriate. It's not, for example, supportive of a friend who's drinking too much to say, oh yes, love it, oh it's fine, I'm sure it doesn't matter, you carry on, a drink's never going to harm you. That would be a perverse use of a supportive intervention. And again, the question is, what's going to be the most helpful way of helping someone move forward? If we've got a friend who's drinking too much, we don't go to supportive anyway. We're probably going to go to confronting, aren't we? Because they're probably not aware of it. So don't get exhausted by all of this, like this poor little 6 cat there. Oh, look at him. And remember that actually you probably do most or all of these already. All we're trying to do with this little video this week is get us thinking about the ways in which we do this and bring these into conscious mindfulness and conscious competence as opposed to unconscious competence. And that's it for the week. Enjoy. And I look forward to hearing how it's been for you mindfully experimenting with these and seeing if you can notice any positive differences in your interactions with your students and your groups. Bye.